Oh hey look, it's that one nerd again. So you might be wondering what I've been doing for the past 2 months. Well, most of it was getting swamped with IRL stuff. About 10% of it was defeating the hardest video game boss in the world according to Fireborn. And the rest was Oregano Desert. As I'm sure you're all well aware by now, Just a Fox figured out how to complete the last impossible room on Oregano Desert, which means that this level is now completely possible to beat with Pizzaface chasing after you. Yeah, that's the challenge by the way, Pizzaface starts chasing you from the start of the level. That was probably really confusing for new time viewers now that I think about it. This video was originally meant to be like all the others in this series, with me completing the full level and explaining my strategies. But after a bit more attempts at the room, it became more and more clear that the strategy used by Just a Fox was, indeed, humanly impossible. So this video turned into the opposite, a short message on why that was the case. But now, after even more attempts at the room, I'm not so sure if that's true either. It's complicated. Anyway, I wanted to make a quick update video regardless to have some place where I dump all my strategies and theories in. Because despite what it seems, this one singular room has taken up the majority of my limited brain space for the past few weeks. So before I lose any more of my sanity, let's talk about...
He flips it downfield and McLaurin, the hometown kid.
On August 10th, 5 hours before my complete Pizzaface video was uploaded, the first clear of Oregano Desert's impossible room was uploaded to YouTube by Just a Fox. Wow. The strategy is really cool. You should definitely check out Just a Fox after this. But the main problem with the clear was that it was completed at a slower game speed to make performing tighter tech easier. This wasn't a secret or anything, it was already known, so even though this was a clear of the room, many people were skeptical whether the room was actually doable in real time, including the person who actually completed it. I was not one of those people. So to prove the skeptics wrong, I uploaded one of my better attempts that actually made it past the rat a couple days after coming back from vacation. The strategy only involves a couple jukes over Pizzaface and a 20 speed high boost to reach the hot wing. Not exactly the most impossible thing we've ever seen. To be clear, this section to actually get the hot wing power up without dying is really complicated, as you need to bait Pizzaface and position Kentucky Kenny in a pretty specific way for it to work out. Still though, it's doable. But that isn't the end of the room. I got caught while falling down to the floor after the dash, which does give some time for Pizzaface to catch up. Fortunately, you can increase the speed at which you fall down with the hot wing power up by just pressing down, so all I needed was a couple more attempts to get the timing on the down input right and I should be good. And so a couple attempts went by, and then a couple more, and then a few more. That was when I realized I was probably doing something wrong. I went back to Just a Fox's clear of the room with slowdown, and sure enough, I found something I hadn't noticed before. But before I tell you, try and see if you can spot it yourself. Now here's my best attempt at the room, slightly slowed down post-editing. Notice anything? That's awfully strange. The speed at which we fall down is completely different. Turns out, just holding down isn't going to speed you up fast enough to outrun Pizzaface. You need to do something way dumber. If we go through the original clear frame by frame, we can see that Just a Fox is able to get much more vertical speed than normal, and it specifically happens in increments of 10 speed at a time. If we look at his input display, we can see that he starts holding down the exact frame after the air dash ends, which gives him 10 speed instantly, but then he releases the down button in the next frame, and starts holding it again right after. This gives him another 10 speed, leading to a max of around 20 to 30 speed once the noise reaches the ground. This lets him jump up to get up to this ledge incredibly fast, just barely out of reach from Pizzaface. This is a technique so obscure that I had no idea it existed, but sure enough, if you mash down as fast as you can when falling as the noise, you get the exact same effect. However, the technique itself doesn't bother me, it's the rate at which it is done. In Just a Fox's clear, he's able to gain 30 speed before reaching the ground, which theoretically requires 3 separate releases and represses of the down button while falling from a relatively short height. As you might have guessed, this is incredibly hard to pull off in such a short time frame, as the noise only ever spends about half a second in the air after the dash. This, combined with the fact that I don't understand how the technique works in the slightest, makes it fairly obvious that simply mashing down won't cut it for clearing this room. After analyzing Just a Fox's clear a bit more, it's also apparent that the speed gain is in fact mandatory to complete the jump onto the ledge, as Pizzaface gives us absolutely no wiggle room to work with. So that's it, right? Oregano Desert is just humanly impossible, and I can finally stop worrying about this challenge. Oh, how I wish that was the case.
Perdón, ¿qué dijiste?
The new Pizza Tower localization patch brought about a whole lot of bug fixes and improvements to the game, one of those being a fix to uppercut momentum. In previous patches, due to some animation differences or something, high jumps and high woos for the noise were bugged, and would not retain momentum when going to the left. In the case of high woos, they just wouldn't work entirely. Well, that's all been fixed in the new patch. This means we aren't strictly limited to rightwards high woos in this room, which gives us a few more potential strategies. The first and most obvious one is getting the Hot Wing power up on the left side of the room, as we can now reach it fast enough with a high woost from the right. The obvious strategy of simply woosting over Pizzaface on the bottom wall doesn't work well enough though, as we have to waste a lot of our momentum going over Pizzaface before tornadoing down. This still gives us a high woost, but an incredibly slow one, so it's not very useful. However, we have another place where we can high woost on the left, which is on this wall just above the rat. This spot gives us the advantage of being higher up, ultimately allowing us to go just above Pizzaface with 22 speed. With the 22 speed, we can reach the Hot Wing and get the transformation with a decent amount of time to spare, but going back to the right is the real issue now. Since the ceiling of this room is so low, and Pizzaface is chasing us from the top, it's incredibly difficult to get past him and to the right. To be clear, it is possible to jump over Pizzaface here with the Hot Wing power up, but since we can't gain enough distance between him vertically due to the low ceiling, and because the air dash is a purely horizontal maneuver, jumping over him in this particularly tight scenario is very problematic. So yeah, it seems this strategy falls just short as well. So is this room possible or not? To be honest, I'm not really sure myself. Even though I've tested each strategy thoroughly, I just can't say that either of them don't work. The problem is that there's just so many factors to setting up each of these strategies. Any normal Pizzaface dodge just involves some type positioning, which can be mastered to a T most of the time, but this case is different. Since we're actively luring Pizzaface while setting up the Hot Wing projectile in the correct spot, making sure everything works becomes a lot trickier. Not only do you have to worry about dodging Pizzaface himself, but you also have to worry about where and when Kentucky Kenny fires the Hot Wing, how long you'll have to wait for it to travel before actually getting it, and then there's the problem of hitting efficient high woosts themselves. Even though I've gotten promising results many times, each attempt was so minutely different that I don't know whether it was just dumb luck or not. That's why I feel so mixed about calling this level impossible or not. There just might be some perfect combination of both Pizzaface stalling and Hot Wing positioning that makes this just possible enough to beat by a human. This could be caused by either perfectly optimizing the original Just the Fox strategy to make it more lenient while falling down, or by coming up with a completely different setup. And due to the infinite possibilities of the noise's movement, I'm sure a promising setup like that exists. Which is exactly why I made this video. I'm not here to definitively state whether this level is possible or not, but to say that I need your help. If you happen to have any ideas for potential Pizzaface strategies, I highly encourage you to test them out for yourself, and to post in the comments what you find. I am just one person after all, and there's only so many failed attempts I can take before the game over music makes my ears bleed. Just the Fox has already made a great contribution by proving that this room is at least possible, so now all we have to do is actually beat it. I will keep grinding this room for a bit in the meantime. I think I've already done everything I can do at normal speed, so I might start experimenting with slower game speed to make attempts more consistent. It probably won't continue for long, as I am getting kind of burnt out by this challenge and by life in general. That's also why this is the first edited video I've made since August. Sorry about that. Like I've mentioned in some earlier posts, I do have some video ideas already in the making, but Oregano Desert has made those projects slow to a crawl. Those videos also cover complex topics, so I feel I need to put more effort into them as well. But yeah, that's basically all I wanted to mention for now. Thank you to everyone who's being patient and supports my content. Y'all are the best. I hope you enjoyed this little update, and I'll see you later.